Hello, welcome back to the ministry. We are on part 3-2, and we are talking about this is a financial attack that I see occurring in relation to relationship, partnership, merger, so on and so forth. And this is like part 3-2 because the Lord kind of showed me this. He brought my attention to the movie The Temptations of a Marriage Counselor, but he had me come back and wanted me to do a review financially. And I was like, you want me to do a review financially? So I'm like, okay. So this is what we're talking about, and I'm just flowing through it the way that the Lord has shown me that I needed to flow through it. And He's been giving me some interesting revelations along the process as well. So I'm with you. I don't exactly know what we're talking about, but I'm just reading the outline He gave me and prophesying through it the way He's showing it to me. And I hope this is good to you. Because one thing that I notice a lot of people do not like to talk about, which is a very important thing that you should be talking about, which is finances in your marriage. You know, one of the top 3 things that causes a marriage to end is finance, communication, and intimacy. Intimacy, sex, what have you. These are the top 3 things. So this is actually, in a way, is showing you the communication, the sex, and the finance. How's it showing that? I'm going to get there. Right now, we still dealing with the financial part, and we're going to show how that other thing ties in, okay? So, your marriage isn't just a lovey-dovey situation. You have to understand, and this is something that I don't know if the playlist for the spiritual warfare is visible, so I'm going to go and I'm going to check and see if it's visible, and I'm going to make sure that it's visible, because there's warfare that you don't understand that you're under that you need to pay attention to. I mean, seriously. Because marriage isn't just a lovey-dovey element. It's not just a lovey-dovey element. It's work. You don't realize that when you are marrying somebody, you are coming into a contractual obligation with an individual. Follow me. You're coming into a contractual obligation with an individual. A lot of people just get on the vows. Oh, I'm going to love, and I'm going to marry, and I'm going to cherish, and I'm going to this, and I'm going to that. You realize that's a contractual agreement. You signed paperwork before you entered into this agreement. You are signing paperwork that you're going to love, honor, cherish, cover sickness, health, with children, without children, all these kinds of things, which also brings in medical records, health benefits, all these kinds of documentations. People sitting up here, don't let me go there, don't let me go there. I'm not going to get off on that tangent. There's another word I got to release, and that's it may come up in this. It may. But we're going to it's a contractual agreement. Do you know what a contractual agreement is? Let's look it up, shall we? A contractual agreement is a contractual agreement that is legally binding agreement between 2 parties. Isn't that what a marriage license is? Oh, that's what I thought. A contract's terms and conditions will require the parties to either do or refrain from doing specific actions. This is when you have the marriage license, and then you may have a prenuptial agreement, meaning these are the things that you are not going to do. Now, mature people don't need a prenuptial agreement, because you don't need to have a set of laws to tell you if you cross these boundaries. I'm going to dump you, I'm going to sue you, I'm going to take everything away from you. You don't need that. Mature people are mature enough not to do the basics. Not cheat, not lie, not steal, not your basics. But immature people have issues with that. Now, let's talk about proposal, because isn't a proposal the first thing that happens in a marriage? Okay, let's see what a proposal means. A plan or suggestion, especially a formal or written one, put forward under consideration of discussion by others. An action of proposing a plan or suggestion. A proposal is a plan. A marriage license is a contract. Your proposal is a discussion that leads to the suggestion of a proposed contract. For a joint merger between two parties. So why the hell is everybody acting like a marriage is so? This is a contract. There are many a celebrity that had to pay out the wazoo when they got divorced. That's the third contract for having broken the second contract, which was the actual contract after the proposal. And they had to pay out their behinds because either they didn't have a prenuptial agreement, which was the second contract, contractual agreement. That prevented them from losing half of everything to a person that probably didn't even deserve it. You know, there's an actual scripture in the Bible that talks about in Deuteronomy 28 that there is a woman that will marry a man and she will purposely siphon him, drain him, and then she'll divorce him because she's out here cheating and doing all this kind of stuff. It's in scripture. Hold on, let me see if I can get it for you, in the case you don't believe. Deuteronomy 30 and 31. You'll get engaged to a woman, and another man will take her for his mistress. You'll build a house and never live in it. You'll plant a garden and never eat so much as a carrot. You'll watch oxen get butchered and not get a single steak from it. And your donkeys will be stolen in front of you, and you'll never see them again. Your sheep will be sent off to your enemies, and no one will lift a finger to stop it. That's Deuteronomy 28, 30, and 31. What the hell are we doing out here getting married to people that we don't know who they are? Engaged to people that we don't know who they are? Don't understand their hearts or their heart postures. And some of you do understand their hearts and their heart postures, but for some reason you under some level of, you must be under witchcraft, because these people be acting like straight narcissists and people turn around here and marry them. That's a whole nother broadcast, not going there today. But I needed to make sure that you understand that a marriage is a merger and it's a contractual agreement. Okay? Let's get back to the notes. So, with that being said, it's a joint partnership. You have joint partnership. Pay close attention. So, you have land that you're going to do with this land, and you got to figure out how you're going to build on it. You have to have the right person standing next to you that's going to help you build on it. Or, remember what I said in the previous video about eating up your harvest? There are an entire set of scriptures on eating up your harvest. When you are in the wrong relationship with the wrong person, that individual will give you allowances. That individual will siphon money from you. And that individual will keep you within poverty, meaning you'll be toiling and never get any further because they're draining you financially. You understand what I'm saying? So with them draining you financially, you're putting out and they just eating up your harvest. The more you put out, the more you put out. This is what a man goes through when he's toiling. Go back and watch the video that I did previously about the exalted woman and man. The counterfeit will have that man toiling because it's out of order. This is why marriage is the most important relationship you will ever come into agreement with. With that being said, you have to make the determination what it is that you're doing in order to sustain this land in which you're going into, what you're harvesting, what you're financially dealing with when you are coming in. Do you get a job? Meaning, are you getting a job? And if you are getting a job, are you looking into using that as a supplementary income for something bigger? Because that job is only going to give you an allowance. It is a fight to get a job to give you a pay raise or for the minimum wage to go up unless you're working a contractual job that actually gives pay raises bi-yearly and you can negotiate your contract. But most people don't get those jobs unless they have certain degrees in education. But as a child of God, God can position you if you have the skill set in that kind of position for a season in order to increase you. Okay? With that being said, we already talked about discretionary income. What are you building with that discretionary income? Everybody gets caught up in the marriage as it being a lovey-dovey situation, but what are you building in this? Are you planning? I need you to understand, the woman who only had that crude of oil was married to a man for years. He was a servant to the prophet, I believe, and when he died, there was nothing left. If she didn't even look for the crude of oil, she wouldn't have found oil in the house. What are the assets that you're leaving behind for your family? What preparations in the beginning of your marriage are you making in order to prepare to be in this relationship? You understand what I'm saying? Everybody wants I want to get married. I want to have the kids. I want to have the babies. I want to have this. I want to have the house. I want to have but how are you sustaining that? You know that house has a mortgage, right? And a lot of people will sit up there and try to put up with the Joneses, so they'll sit up there and get a mortgage, and then they'll get a second mortgage on the house, and then they'll be borrowing against that mortgage. You see what I'm saying? Robbing Peter to pay Paul. But they're not protecting themselves. What are you doing to protect your assets? How are you creating something from what you already can do in order to increase yourself? Looking at your gifts, your skills, your abilities. Remember, 2 videos back, I talked about these things. How are you preparing? What are you preparing? What are you doing in order to prepare? You understand what I'm saying? So, how are you building? Your job should be a means to an end. It should not be the end. Meaning, you should be putting money away. I love Lisa Nichols' story because she talked about when she had her job that she would take money from all of her paychecks and save. I think she said 10% or whatever percentage of her paycheck. And every time she said she would try to increase. If every check she would increase a certain percentage, increase. And instead of saying she was going to not do it, she removed every blockade, meaning she separated herself from her household, she separated herself from family, she separated herself from, people thought she was crazy. But when she went to that bank after 2 or 3 years of having done this, she went to the bank and they said, "Oh, you're the lady that used to write on the checks." I forget what she wrote on the check. They said, she said, "Well, I came to check my balance. How much do I have?" And she said that the bank tellers were crying when they handed her her balance to show her that she had made $60,000, which was enough for her to get her and her son into a brand new apartment and start her business. What are we doing? What are we doing? Some people don't even have a savings, but if they have a savings account, they are eating it up month by month because they only have enough savings to take care of an emergency that happens in that month. They don't have enough savings to take care of what they need to take care of month by month, year by year into the future. This is why people have nested eggs. This is why they have multiple accounts. I talked about the multiple accounts in the previous video. You have to diversify your accounts in order to be able to understand, hello, how am I protecting myself? What impact am I making to protect myself? Are you picking up what I'm putting down here? Am I making sense? You have to be able to use the money and the discretionary income from your job, just like Lisa Nichols did, to pay into the financial alignment for the arrangement to start your business. Your end goal should be a business. What are you creatively good at, and can you turn it into a business? You better start thinking about that now, because we're coming into some hard times. If you haven't noticed the lay of our world right now, you better start figuring out how to have your own business. If that Pandora's box didn't teach you nothing, it should be that your job could be here today and it's not going to be there tomorrow. With the levels of inflation, with the levels of things that are happening in our world, you better see a route of escape. Now, I'm going to tell you something that my coach showed me a few years ago. During that season, the cornerstone industries, medical, factory, food, and it was a fourth one I can't think of off the top of my head. If you have creative skills and you can go into any of these fields, I would suggest you start planning a business in that direction. I would. Because people don't need it. They are. And it's going to come. I don't like to be the gloom and doom type person, and people have been prophesying this, but I'm going to tell you that yes, there is something else coming. And there's people that have been talking about the fact that it's going to be worse than what we just walked out of. How are you preparing yourself? How are you preparing your baskets? How are you filling yourself? Anybody that was aware of what happened in Canada with that smoke that came through, that right there should have gotten you all ears, all eyes open. In the case of an emergency. And let me tell you something. Let me tell you something right now. Ain't nobody paying attention to this. I remember a couple years back, Justin Timberlake came out with a song. Go look up the video if you want to. I'll look it up for you. Hold on. The name of the song was Supply. But if you go and watch the end of the video for Supplies, you will notice an orange smoke takes over the city. That music video came out 5 years ago. I'm telling you, your government knows more than you think that they do. And you need to be smart enough to prepare yourself ahead of time. Because they for certainly are preparing stuff for you. And I love you enough to tell you you need to get ready. I remember between 10 and 15 years ago, I had a dream and or vision that showed me that something was coming. Didn't know what it was, couldn't figure out what it was, but I knew that I needed to prepare for something. I felt it. I needed to have my own. I couldn't be locked in a job. And I have never been able to be locked in a job. No matter how hard I tried to do the 9-to-5 thing. I think I did 9 to 5 for 3 weeks. The Lord allowed me to do it for 3 weeks. And it was a hard 3 weeks. But it ended up being a seed into what I was doing. You have to prepare for what's coming. What are you doing to prepare for what's coming? Because there is something coming. How are you preparing for it? What are you doing in order to be ready when the time comes? Because it is coming. You need to be building nest eggs. You need to be building financial assets to cover you in the case of an emergency, at least for 1 to 2 years. You need, and a lot of people may say, well, how can I do that? It's so much inflation. Lisa Nichols took 10% off of every check. Stop picking up that change that you think don't mean nothing and throwing it into a jar. You know how your grandparents used to do? They used to throw change in a jar. Let me tell you something. My mama and my daddy had this thing. They had this ball of aluminum foil, and it sat on top of a glass vase. The glass vase had change in it. In the case of an emergency, after my mama passed away, my daddy took that change to the coin star. I think he ended up coming out with anywhere from $200 to $300 from years of saving that change. What are you throwing away in change that you don't even think is worth it? What did I talk about in one of the previous videos where I talked about the silver, the gold, the commodities? There is even scripture in the Bible that talks about they were trading different forms of bread. So if you're trading it, you're trading money. What we out here doing? I see gold and silver commercials all the time. People are out here buying gold and silver. How are you positioning yourself? Create nest eggs. Create financial CDs. Create money mutuals. What are you doing? And then celebrate your financial wins. A lot of people don't celebrate their financial wins. For one, they don't even plan for them. So they don't have them in the first place. Because you're too busy working the 9 to 5 median of just going in one direction. But what if you planned successes? What if you went towards the goals that you actually have? But see, a lot of people are too afraid. That's what I was talking about in that video I recently did, where I talked about most people don't want to go through the work of the process. Not even for this. Some of you, you're going to watch this and it's just going to go right through your head. It's going to go over your head and you're going to miss the whole thing. But some smart people going to take on what they hear. And they're going to be like, yeah, I see what she's saying. I need to start thinking about these things. I need to start preparing for these things. I can help you, but you got to want it. Okay? So, when you are coming into a new thing, you have to keep your eyes and ears open. One, you got to keep your eyes and ears open to new opportunities. One, you got to keep your eyes and ears open to your enemies, okay? Because there are enemies in the land. Recall when in the scripture of Joshua, when they sent the troops in to go spy out the land. There were enemies on that land. Exodus 23 talks about when you go into a promised land or your new territory, there are enemies that are still in existence in that place that you have to, that will be removed once you go in. Some things aren't going to be removed until you step into them. Because it's reminding me of, we just finished the review on Deja Vu. These time jumper movies, anytime you look at the time jumper movie, one of the cardinal rules is that the two people cannot exist in the same existence at the same time. Because if you from your past is in your present and you from the present is in present while your past version is there, it causes a conundrum. Anybody knows this. It's physics of these movies. Because two things that are the exact identical cannot take up the same space. Or it causes a ripple effect or a detrimental issue because it's messing up the time warp or escape, right? So with that being said, you have to be aware that when you're coming into a new thing, that what was there before, which was the old thing, can no longer exist in there when you're coming in. This is why it says in the scripture that God will pull down one to raise up another. When you arrive, the thing that was there must be deposed. It can no longer be there. It must be removed so that you can be positioned where it needs to be. With that being said, this is the point in which the enemy positions himself to come after you. Now, Lord, do you want me to go into this here? Not quite yet. Derail. The enemy is desiring to derail you. Okay? Because once you have come into alignment, you've come into position, you realize that you have a land there, you have gotten past the gatekeeper, you have gotten into your marriage, you have understood the merger that you're in, and you're desiring to start to build on the land, this is when you see the enemy come in order to try to derail, deter, and prevent you from building upon this land. You know what scripture I'm going to talk about. Come on. Ezra 4-6. When Sanballat tried to prevent Nehemiah from building the wall. Shoot, we actually have an actual real life representation of that. Look at what happened when they tried to prevent Trump from building the wall. You understand what I'm saying? They will attempt to derail you, deter you, delay you, instill fear in you, oppress you, depress you, and obstruct you in order to hopefully get you to collapse and no longer do anything in relation to that thing. Dr. Jolene Whitaker did a broadcast where she talked about don't come off the wall. Actually, that's what it was called, though. Don't come down off the wall. I'm going to link that prayerfully in this video so that you will have that as a reference point. So I'm going to give you all a lot of references. So I'm going to come back with that. Next, it's supposed to keep you from moving forward into your promise and what God has called you into doing, because he can't stop the promise, but he can stop you from pursuing it. A lot of us right now are literally in the middle of a battle to walk into the manifestation that God has already told us that we're supposed to walk into in this season. And the enemy is either coming against you or he's coming against your ordained partner. Okay? Because he knows that once you determine that you are in the wrong place, you will figure out that you need to separate from everything that is not in alignment with God. And then you're going to come into alignment with the things that are of God, meaning people, places, situations, and scenarios. And when you do that, you won't be a whole problem for hell. So what the enemy does is he puts blockade after blockade after blockade after blockade after blockade. If he can't do it with you because you're spiritually wise enough, he's going to do it with your kingdom spouse. There was somebody that wrote a message here in my comments a couple weeks back in relation to they were in a relationship and they were hearing that the Lord was telling them that they could potentially have to separate from their spouse. And they're married to that individual. And I'm not going to say that the Lord was wrong. I never advise you to separate from your spouse. We all got free will. But if you know that the Lord is talking to you, and how do you know the Lord is talking to you? You get in a consecration with God. A lot of people don't want to do that because they know that the Lord is going to show them things that they don't want to see. They know that the Lord is going to start to take up and tear up and rip up and prune and remove things that they don't want to have removed. So they don't want to get in God's face like that. Because they know when they really do get in God's face, he's going to move every block. But the enemy knows once those blocks are removed, you're going to be a whole problem for hell. So he tries to keep those blocks there as long as possible. And I'm not going to go any further into that in this video. I'm going to come back and we're going to deal a little deeper in that.